If we want to maximize our evangelization efforts, we need to be running on both lungs of evangelization, the lung of proclamation and the lung of demonstration. By proclamation, I mean a presentation of the gospel message of Jesus Christ in a way that the hearer can understand it, know how to respond to it, and be invited to respond to it. By demonstration, I mean those signs and wonders and graces and consolations that either make it possible for people to open up to the gospel and respond to it, or to confirm them in the decision that they've made, the best decision they've ever made. So only running on one lung of evangelization is not unlike what it's like for us if we're only running on one physical lung. So for example, if we're only running on one physical lung, it's going to really limit our activity. So for example, let's say we're only running on the lung of proclamation. Then it's going to be very difficult for us to be able to break through strongholds like ideological and philosophical strongholds. But if you're really only running on the lung of demonstration, signs and wonders and consolations and signal graces, then people will not know how to steward this most incredible grace. They won't know how to steward this grace for the long haul that leads to a life of sanctification and holiness. If we are only running on one lung of evangelization, not unlike running on one physical lung, our immunity will be compromised, leading to infection. And that can happen to us. If we are only running on the lung of proclamation, then our evangelization efforts can be infected with an over-intellectualization of the gospel, or an overly academic approach, or dare I say, an overly catechetical approach, especially if you don't understand catechesis as primary and as secondary. If you're only running on the lung of demonstration, then you can equally have infections of a faith that is overly individualistic, or overly emotional, or overly spiritual. Because without proclamation, then people can't discern these graces and apply them to their lives, or know how to steward them or interpret them in the whole context of sanctification and salvation. When you have just one physical lung, even just basic day-to-day living is difficult. So let's imagine just being able for the church to live in maintenance mode, just business as usual, which we don't want to be doing anyway because the church is missionary. But let's say it was okay to run just in maintenance mode. Well, even there it's difficult. Because if you're running just on the lung of proclamation, you still need encouragements. You still need consolations to stay faithful to the day in and day out and for it to be fruitful. If you're in maintenance mode and you're just living on the lung of demonstration, just living on consolations and spiritual uplifts, then you won't even be able to maintain what you have. You will gradually lose what you have because you don't have the proclamation to guide you in terms of how to steward the spiritual grace that the Lord has given you. And the last challenge without having two lungs, without having both lungs, is that you don't have backup. You don't have any redundancy if one lung either goes away or one lung just generally isn't as strong as the other lung. Even St. Paul relied on both lungs. He said, look, I didn't come to you with eloquence or like amazing words, but I came to you with the power of God. So even St. Paul realized, at least he felt, that his proclamation wasn't maybe all that strong. then how was he so effective? Because his demonstration was so strong. So, just like physically, we can live on one lung. Who would want to? We don't want to just survive as a church, we want to thrive. And we can only thrive by living on both lungs of evangelization, the lung of proclamation and the lung of demonstration.